the sun came up today as it did yesterday. In fact, I think I saw it come up yesterday as late as we got home. But our guys are disappointed, but they're eager to have another top 25 team coming into DKR with an opportunity to solidify our spot atop the Big 12 standings. There was a lot to be learned from the game on Saturday. A really good football team. They gave us their best shot, and their best was really good. I think it's very apparent that we're at a point in our program. Again, I've said it numerous times, but it bears repeating, that our best is good enough to compete with and beat pretty much anybody in the country. But when we're not at our best and we're getting the other team's best, we're not good enough yet to overcome that, and our guys know that. And so it's up to us to make sure that we prepare so that we can play our best. And the one thing, not the one thing, but one of the things that I was most proud of, again, as I said Saturday night, is we didn't quit. We were down 17 at halftime, came out, and again, it was, rah, rah, rah in the locker room at halftime, and we come out and we got a punt on our first two series on offense. And at that point, it would have been very easy in a different culture for a lot of guys to look at each other on the sideline and say, you know what, boys, tonight's just not our night. And they didn't. They kept fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting, and it was too little too late, and Oklahoma State played great. Played fantastic. And but the exciting thing is, we've still got all of our big picture goals ahead of us. Again, I don't talk big picture with them very often, but I did yesterday and Saturday after the game in the locker room. And the big picture is that we've still got all of our goals in terms of competing for the conference championship ahead of us. And got a really good West Virginia team coming in, top 15, top 10 team. I don't know what the rankings are, but they're really good with only one loss. And obviously, one of the guys in contention for the Heisman Trophy back there at quarterback too. So injury update: Brecken Hager suffered a pretty severe SC sprain. I think that's the sternoclavicular joint up here. So he's kind of day to day. Deshaun Jameson has a midfoot sprain, so he's day to day. And Malcolm Roach is. We're going to see how today and tomorrow go, and might be able to do a little something at practice this week. He has progressed to the point of everything except football drills on that foot. So we've got to see how that goes here in the next couple days. But excited to at least barring any setback, we're counting on him next week. If things happen faster than that, we might be able to see him this week. So, questions?
Tom, with the suspensions, you talk about buy-in culture all the time. What is your level of anxiety, over that happening with so much on the line, and your disappointment in your leadership of the team?
No anxiety, zero. It doesn't matter if we were playing week 1 or week 10 or who the opponent is, or if it was Oklahoma State or Oklahoma or Tulsa or San Jose State. We have standards to uphold, and when those standards aren't met, then there's consequences for that, and everybody in our program knows that, and it's okay. We don't love them any less. When you ground your kid, it doesn't mean you love them any less. It doesn't mean your feelings have changed for them. We love Chris Boyd, and we love Devontae Davis. We love L.J. Humphrey, absolutely. They they made a minor mistake that has to be reinforced. Our culture needs to be reinforced on a daily basis so that moving forward, especially our young guys, know that it doesn't matter who you're playing or what your name is.
Can you say the first quarter obviously was very key in this game? And did you debate?
260 yards.
Yeah, seems to be pretty critical. So did you debate in your own mind and talk to your staff about what's the proper punishment, whether it's a series or a whole quarter?
No, we went in to the game. We had that planned out. It wasn't as game time of a decision as I may have said. I mean, we decided the night before as a staff what it was going to be and why, and it was going to be a series for LJ and a quarter for the other two guys, and there was never any wavering of that, regardless of what was going on the field.
Hey, Coach. This season your team has played extremely well against ranked opponents. The USC, TCU, Oklahoma. It's just the non-ranked opponents that seem to give you guys a little bit more difficulty. Can you pinpoint on why you might see more mental errors or more struggles against some of the non-ranked opponents as opposed to getting up for the bigger opponents?
No, we were plenty up. We didn't play good. We were plenty. I thought, the 24 hours leading up to the game, I thought we traveled well. We were, everybody was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I mean we were ready to go. So as to why we didn't play well, I think, there's a lot of factors, and one, it's a really good team that we just played. Really good team, and I know everybody wants to look at records, but I look at players and I look at coaches, and they got really good players with really good coaches, and they did a really good job, having their guys playing well, and we didn't. And so I don't think ranked versus unranked, any of that stuff matters to our guys. I think, we didn't play well on the road in a hostile environment. I mean, that was fun college football environment. I mean, that place, I wish the stands were a little bit farther from the sideline so we didn't have guys, our starting nickel running into, headset boxes and all that and bruising his tibia, but that was really fun atmosphere, and our guys were ready. We just didn't play well.
When players call out other players after a game, especially after a loss, a lot of times it's a negative thing. Andrew Beck after the game said he was very disappointed in Brecken and what he did, late in the game. Is that because of the culture you're trying to create? Is that actually a good thing? Is that actually senior leadership? And it's not, I know it's not division, but I mean, is that actually a good thing when players are stepping up and saying, hey, this guy can't do that. We can't have those things happen.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think, especially when it's something like that, where, I mean, my 88-year-old grandmother knows that you're not supposed to do that. When it's things like that, I think it's, and he's asked, I mean, I'm not encouraging our guys to go seek out, to criticize your teammate, but when you're asked a direct question, I think open, honest communication is the only way to go about it, and I think that's how we all felt. I mean, disappointed is a lot different word than mad at or excommunicated from. I mean, you ask a question, were you disappointed? Yes, I was disappointed, but I mean, they're roommates. I mean, so they live together, so I don't think there's any bad blood or anything like that. And when we instruct our guys, when you're asked a question, answer it honestly.
Tom, you said many times that the only opinions that matter are in your locker room and on your coaching staff. Emmanuel Acho made some really critical comments on Chris Boyd over the weekend, and Chris clapped back at him on Instagram. Is there a concern that people are buying in, particularly Chris buying into the external noise, and have you addressed that with him?
Not concern. I think it was more, it was an ill-advised attempt to actually prove that the only people whose opinions really matter are the ones in the team meeting room and in the locker room. And so, yeah, we talked about it. And again, you know, you want to silence any critic. The best way to do that is keep your mouth shut and go play really good. And again, if you're concerned about the critics, then you've probably got bigger issues. And so we did talk about that, but I think it was Chris's ill-advised, you know, way to kind of show everybody that the only people whose opinions matter are his teammates and coaches. And so there's a learning moment.
Coach, Will Greer has 25 touchdown passes this year. Your thoughts in looking at the film of Greer and his two outstanding wide receivers? They're pretty good.
Yep. What was I think, was it the Oklahoma game when I quoted Armageddon and scariest environment imaginable? That's all you had to say, scariest environment imaginable. Yeah, it's really good. I mean, he is super talented. You can see why he is on top of, you know, or at the top of most people's Heisman Trophy, you know, short list. And so, you know, he's going to make plays. And, you know, and obviously the two receivers are his go-to guys. And so we've got to do a good job. The one thing that they're doing better this year, in my opinion, than they did last year, they're running the ball really well too. And so that creates quite the conundrum on defense, where I think last year, if you sat back and defended the pass, I think you could maybe hold up against the run, you know, with, you know, as we call zero count football, meaning you don't have an extra hat on defense. But we're going to have to get +1 to the run game, and so we're going to have to mix and match how we do that, because they are running the ball really well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Tom, Saturday's game seemed to me to harken back to the thing you said all August, and that you felt really good about your starting 22, but beyond that, you know, it gets murky. And I wonder, frankly, from a simplistic standpoint, that's what the rest of this season is going to be. If your starting 22 is playing their A or B+ game, you're going to do well. And if they don't, or you get injuries, there could be problems.
Well, yeah, I think most places outside of about 3 in the country probably feel that way, to be honest with you, 3 or 4 in the country. I mean, they're starting for a reason. It's because they're playing better than the other guy. And anytime you have a starter go down, you know, by definition, you know, the quality of play might go down a little bit. But that's why it's so important. You know, one of our pillars of our program is called competitive focus, meaning, you know, when your number is called, that you're ready. And so we've got to do a really good job with our key backups. And, you know, I mean, you saw some of them go in and probably didn't bat an eye when you see Chris Brown go in, when you see Josh Thompson go in, when you see Gerald Wilbon go in. You know, I don't think anybody bats an eye when those guys go in. So I think, you know, we're on our way in terms of, you know, creating some depth, but we've certainly got to accelerate it.
Mm-hmm. And then, you know, I like asking questions about the journey of the program here. And, you know, it seems like you face a really interesting test this week. I mean, here they've had some success, but now they've had a setback, and it's responding to that is going to be a major key, it seems to me, this week.
I think so. I think we responded fantastically to the opening season loss. I don't think anybody can dispute that. And so I think this is very similar, that game in Stillwater will only define our season if we let it. And we have an opportunity to define our season by how we respond to it as well. And Kevin Washington, who does our chapel service, he talked about, you know, human beings like an analogy of like a sponge, where when you get squeezed, you know, it may look okay on the outside, but when you squeeze a sponge, what's really inside comes out. And we got squeezed Saturday night. And so now we're going to figure out what's really inside of our guys, and I think I think they'll respond as well, if not better, than we did after week 1.
Coach, the running quarterback obviously hurt you guys big time Saturday. You're going to see that a little bit more with Greer. He's got the capability of doing the same kind of things. Can you tell me about Gary Johnson's role in that situation? Did he had a great game with a lot of tackles and made a lot of plays, but is he responsible for the quarterback making sure that those big plays don't happen with those guys?
It depends on the front coverage blitz. I mean, every call is different. So it happened. Gary's one of the fastest players on our defense, regardless of position. So, when the quarterback's out in the open field, sometimes it's the first guy to get there gets him, and he oftentimes is the first guy there. So we have to do a better job schematically to handle the quarterback, and we know that. But at the same time, who's responsible for it? I mean, it's a myriad of extra players. Again, we talk about on defense, you always want to be +1 in the run game. You always want to have it. Now, sometimes that might be a cloud corner. Sometimes that might be a quarter safety. Sometimes it might be a linebacker that the ball gets spilled to. So it's a myriad of players could be.
Coach, I know opening drives have been a problem for you all defensively this year, giving up scores on 6 of the 8 opening drives. 20% of the points you've allowed this year have come on opening drives. Why do you think that's been such an issue?
I don't know. It's funny you asked that because I was doing some math in my head too. It's first time I thought about it even was yesterday, and Todd and I just brought it to Todd's attention yesterday, and we're going to talk about it some more tonight. But yeah, I don't know. And last year it was the opposite. I think so we just got to figure out why and make sure. But I don't have a great answer for you right now.
Guys have seen some good receivers. SILS presents, seems like a different set of skills with his size and everything. Can you kind of expand on what he presents defensively?
Yeah, I mean, the size is the thing that stands out, obviously. 6'4", 210 pounds, whatever. Just his body control is phenomenal in terms of contorting his body and in midair when he jumps, and obviously his ball skills are off the charts in terms of his ability to catch the football. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure, but I think he might have been a quarterback at one point in his life, and so you can certainly see that he's got some really good big picture awareness, and just has a knack for getting open in zone coverage, and then in man coverage presents the body mismatch. So he's a tough one to account for.
Tom, can you talk about the rotation at running back? Keontae, I don't think, had a carry in the fourth quarter. He had a catch, but not a carry. So your rotation at running back, and then is Josh Thompson working any at corner, just left or right?
The rotation at running back was predicated. We've seen a lot of one-high defense, and so if we were going to run the football, there was going to be an extra hat pretty close to the box, and so we felt like in the second half that Danny Young might fare a little bit better with an extra secondary player to be able to run through some arm tackles, and so we had Keontae and Trey in on a lot of passes, and Danny was. I don't think we ran the ball very much in the fourth quarter, regardless of who was carrying it. So I don't think anybody should be any alarmed by Keontae only having one carry in the fourth quarter. So yeah, I think it was predicated on what we felt was best, based on the fronts and coverages we were getting, and who was best suited to handle that. And then Josh Thompson, no, I mean he's our backup nickel right now, and needs every rep he can get there, especially with PJ getting dinged up.
Tom, the delay of game penalties at the beginning of some of your drives, is that on Sam? Is that on the coaches? And how do you guys address that?
Well, they're supposed to reset the play clock if the defense is late. You know, this is a new rule to speed up the game. And so we have made a very concerted effort to get the play in and get our guys out there. And then when the defense is late getting out there, they're supposed to reset the clock. And a couple times that didn't happen. And I talked about it with the referee, and you know, and then we've got to do a better job as coaches of, I mean, pretty much you can't check on the first play of a series, because by the time you get out there and they give the defense time to get out there and the play clock's been running, you know, it's almost, you're out of time. You just got to get out there and snap the ball. So I think you'll see us do more of that. And it's just as we call it and haul it plays, where it's good against pretty much everything that they do, and you know, limit, you know, what we're asking the quarterback to check to at the line of scrimmage on those opening plays. But there was a couple that I was a bit upset that the shot clock, the play clock, NBA season's in full effect right now, but that the play clock didn't get reset.
Tom, the one blip for West Virginia was at Iowa State. I think Greer had like 100 yards passing. They completely shut him down. What can your group take from that performance? What did the Cyclones do so well to limit them on offense?
Well, a couple things. One, when they played coverage, they covered them. And again, you know, they kind of unveiled that you know, drop 8 package against us last year in Ames on Thursday night, and they've had a lot of success with it. You know, clouding both corners, dropping 8 guys into coverage, and you know, when you only got 4, that's 4 on 8. That's tough to get open. And then when they did bring pressure, it was extremely effective, and it hit home. So I think those two things, they did a really good job of mixing coverage with pressure, and when they covered, they covered. I mean, it may only be a 3-man rush, but we're going to cover your guys. And when they pressured, it was, you know, some things that they hadn't shown on video, and I think, you know, the element of surprise was there. So I think there is an element that we can take from that. We've got to be able to stop the run when we want to cover, so to speak, because, you know, we don't know when they have a run called or a pass called. So, you know, if it was a run, if you knew it was a run, you'd like to have everybody in the box, and if it was a pass, you'd drop 10, right? But so we've got to be very strategic in when we pressure and bring +1 to the run game, but also, you know, when we put guys in coverage.
Tom, how would you grade your offensive line, and how important is it to keep West Virginia's offense off of the field with your running game?
We were going to have to run the football. There's no doubt. You know, there was you know, talk on the headset during the Oklahoma State game offensively, and you know, it was, hey coach, you know, to keep them out of some of these pressures that they were in, and the one high defenses, and kind of get them on their heels. They talked about you know, getting into some tempo, and I said, hang on guys, there's a game management aspect to this too, that we need to help our defense as much as possible too. So there is an element of that that we definitely do need to run the football. The best way to stop an offense like West Virginia's is keep them off the field. Don't let them get started. And so, but we've also got to score points too. I don't think anybody's kidding themselves thinking this is going to be a, you know, 10-3 ball game. You know, so we've got to put our offense in the best position to score points too, but be mindful of the fact that, you know, this is a team sport as well. And how would I grade the O-line? I'd say above average, which is, considering where we came from with last season's group, I think is a drastic improvement. As I've said a couple times before, we're doing a much better job of getting in front of people, which is the first step of good O-line players, right? Is you got to at least get in front of them. And now we've got to do a better job here these last few games of starting moving people, and it's hard. Both our tackles are 280 pounds, which I don't know if there's another Power 5 school in the country that where both their tackles, are 280 pounds. But the one thing they are is they're athletic as heck, and they're smart, really smart. So we got to be mindful of what we ask them to do, but we also know we've got to run the football in this one.
Tom, a heightened awareness this summer with the passing of Frank Denius, veteran recognition on Saturday. What does that mean to you and your team outside of the game of football?
Oh, we wouldn't be able to play this great game if it weren't for the veterans that have fought for us to have the freedoms that we enjoy here in this country. And so, especially when one of the most decorated veterans of World War II is one of your own, and Frank Denius. But we've also, from Nate Boyer to, the list goes on and on of all the veterans that have actually played football here as well. And so, we're extremely mindful of that fact and grateful, for all the men and women in their service, but maybe even a touch more for the ones that wore burnt orange.